The afternoon sun poured over Willow Creek Park, turning the playground into a bright little world of squeaky swings and scattered laughter. Sprinklers hissed in the distance, brushing the grass with a light mist. Parents sat on benches under the trees, talking softly while kids ran and shouted across the mulch. Ava Johnson sat on a bench near the swings, a paperback open in her lap, though she hadn't turned a page in minutes. Most of her attention stayed on her son, 5-year-old Noah, who was zooming around the playground like a tiny rocket. His curly hair bounced as he ran toward two kids arguing over a red toy truck. Ava watched him slow down and crouch beside them. She couldn't hear his words, but she knew that gentle, patient way of his. His hands moved between the boys as he tried to help them share. Her chest warmed. "That's my little peacemaker," she murmured. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down. "Daniel, done early. Heading to the park. You and Noah still there?" She smiled and typed back. "Ava, yes, we're at the swings. He's exhausting the entire playground." She set her phone aside and took a slow breath, letting the calm of the park settle over her. Willow Creek had felt like a dream when they first moved in. Quiet streets, clean yards, good schools everyone talked about. She wanted stability for Noah, a place where he could just be a kid, but even in the quiet, she never fully relaxed. The way some people looked at her, the way a cashier once said, "You live in this neighborhood?" Or the time someone at work joked, "Wow, they're really letting anyone in Willow Creek now." She had laughed it off in front of them and cried alone in her car later, near the picnic tables. A group of women stood in a half circle, holding iced coffees and talking. They wore pastel tops, neat jeans, and expensive sunglasses. The moms group of the neighborhood. Ava recognized them, but had never been invited in. At the center of their little circle stood Karen Whitfield. Karen watched the playground like she owned it, arms folded, shins slightly raised. Her hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. Her eyes, sharp and narrow, moved from child to child, then to each parent, weighing and judging. Ava had felt those eyes on her before. Out by the play structure, one of the boys suddenly let go of the toy truck and began to cry, rubbing his arm. Noah looked startled, still holding the truck out in offering. Before Ava could stand, a sharp voice cut across the playground. "Hey, you! What do you think you're doing?" Karen's heels clicked hard against the path as she marched toward the children. Her face was already twisted with anger. Ava's stomach dropped. She stood up quickly, heart beating faster. Noah turned toward the sound, eyes wide. The crying boy pointed at him. Karen didn't ask a question. She pointed right at Noah. "Step away from them. Right now." Noah froze, the toy truck still in his hand. I was just... "Don't talk back," she snapped. Ava reached them, her voice tight but controlled. "Is there a problem?" Karen turned slowly to look at her, scanning her from head to toe. Her gaze sat on Ava's simple t-shirt and old sneakers longer than necessary, then moved up to her face with a look that wasn't curiosity. It was judgment. "Yes, there is a problem," Karen said. "Your son pushed that boy and took his toy. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior here." Ava looked down at Noah. "Is that what happened?" Noah shook his head fast, tears already forming. "No, Mommy." He fell and started crying. "I was just trying to help." Ava faced Karen again. "I've been watching." He was trying to help them share, not hurt anyone. Karen let out a cold little laugh. "Of course you'd say that. You're his mother." Behind her, the group of moms turned to watch like a live show had started. Some folded their arms. Some leaned in. None moved closer to help. "We live in this neighborhood too," Ava said, keeping her voice as steady as she could. "My son has every right to play here." Karen raised her brows like she'd heard a joke. You live here? She asked. Where? On the edge? Near the highway? In Willow Creek, Ava replied. On Brookside Lane. Corinne's expression hardened. She took a step closer and lowered her voice, just enough to sound private, but still loud enough for people nearby to hear. We worked hard to make this a safe, decent neighborhood, she said. We don't need people coming in and causing trouble. Ava's jaw tightened. What kind of people are you talking about? Corinne's mask slipped. People like you, she snapped. If you don't like how things are done here, you can just go back to your country. The park fell silent. Kids stopped mid-run. A mother froze with a juice box halfway to her child's mouth. Even the squeak of the swings seemed to disappear. The words just hung there, heavy and poisonous. Noah gripped his mother's leg and pressed his face into her side. He didn't fully understand the sentence, but he understood something bad had been said about them. Ava's mind flooded with noise and went quiet at the same time. She heard every racist comment she'd ever ignored, every joke she had let slide, every moment she'd told herself it's not worth it. Something inside her crumpled. Something else hardened. She took a breath, her voice shaking but clear. We were born in this country, she said. This is our home. We're not going anywhere. Corinne rolled her eyes. Sure, you can tell yourself that. But some of us actually belong here. Across the park, an older man, Mr. Alvarez, slowly stood from his bench, watching with narrowed eyes. Near the play structure, a teenager quietly raised her phone and started recording Dot next to the swings. A familiar car pulled into a space by the curb. Daniel stepped out. Scanning the park, his gaze quickly landing on his wife and son. And the woman pointing at them. His face changed. The gentle expression he wore walking in faded into a look of sharp, focused concern. He shut the door and started toward them. His stride calm but purposeful. Corinne had no idea who was coming. Ava wrapped one arm around Noah, feeling his small body tremble against her. His fingers curled into her shirt, holding on like she might disappear if he let go. Mommy, he whispered, his voice muffled in her side. Did I do something bad? Her heart twisted. No, baby, she said quietly. You didn't do anything wrong. Corinne folded her arms tighter. He scared those children, she said loudly. You did nothing to stop it. Ava looked toward the crying boy. He had stopped sobbing and was now standing beside another woman who looked uncertain. The boy sniffled but wasn't hurt. The red truck lay on the ground between them. I'm more than willing to talk calmly about what happened, Ava said. But you don't get to yell at my child and tell us to leave the country. Corinne scoffed. Oh, please. Don't make this a big drama. I call things like I see them. If you don't like it, no one forced you to move here. From behind her, one of the moms whispered, Corinne, maybe, but went quiet when Corinne shot her a glare. Another mom murmured to her friend, This is exactly why I avoid any conflict out here. They were close enough to hear, close enough to speak up, but they DIDN single quotes T. Noah tugged on Ava's hand. Can we go home? He asked softly. Ava's throat felt tight. Her first instinct screamed yes. Grab your son. Leave. Escape the eyes, the whispers, the humiliation. But beneath that, something else fought its way up, a quiet anger that refused to be swallowed this time. Mr. Alvarez stepped closer, leaning on his cane. I saw what happened, he said, voice low but steady. The little boy tripped on the mulch. Your son tried to help. That's all. Corinne turned on him. I know what I saw, she snapped. Maybe your eyesight isn't what it used to be. He stared at her, unimpressed. My eyesight is fine, he replied. I've watched you pull this on other families, too. Karen ignored him and turned back to Ava. The truth is, people like you come into these parks and break rules and cry racism when someone speaks up. I'm tired of it. Ava felt Noah flinch at the sharpness of Karen's voice. She bent down and kissed the top of his head. It's okay, she whispered. I've got you. Just then, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Ava? She turned to see Daniel only a few steps away, his brows furrowed, his eyes locked onto her face first, then Noah's, then Karen's. Noah pulled away from her and ran toward him. Daddy? He cried out. Daniel scooped him up, pressing a gentle kiss to his forehead. Hey, buddy, he said softly. What's going on? Noah wrapped his arms around Daniel's neck and pointed back toward the playground. That lady yelled at Mommy, he said. She called us something mean. Ava swallowed hard. We had a situation, she said quietly. Daniel's eyes flicked back to Karen. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush. But something in his expression shifted. The warmth dimmed. Replaced by something sharper. He set Noah gently back down beside Ava and leaned in close to her. You okay? He asked under his breath. I will be, she said. But she said things in front of him that I can't ignore. Daniel nodded once. Then we won't ignore them. He looked at Noah. Stay with Mommy, champ, he said. I'll be right over there. Noah nodded, clutching Ava's hand. Daniel walked toward Karen, shoulders relaxed but posture firm. The moms group watched, suddenly very quiet. Karen tilted her chin up as he approached. You must be her husband, she said. You need to explain to her that this kind of behavior isn't acceptable here. Daniel stopped a few feet from her. What kind of behavior are you talking about? He asked. She let her son push another child, Karen said sharply. Then she tried to argue with me instead of correcting him. She's upsetting the whole park. Daniel glanced toward the little boy, who was now playing quietly again. I see kids playing, he replied. I don't see anyone hurt, but I do hear people yelling. Karen bristled. I'm yelling because no one else will say what needs to be said. We work hard to keep this neighborhood safe and decent. They come in, cause problems, and when someone calls them on it, suddenly, it's about race. Daniel's face barely moved, but his eyes hardened. So when you told my wife to go back to her country, that wasn't about race? He asked. The crowd stirred at his words. The teenage girl with the phone moved a little closer, still recording. That's not what I meant, Karen snapped. You're twisting it. I just meant if they don't like how things are done here. You told a black woman in a public park to go back to her country. Daniel said calmly. In front of your neighbors. In front of children. In front of her son. Karen's eyes darted around, realizing how many people were listening now. You're taking it out of context, she insisted. I was upset. Things slipped out. Things usually slip out from somewhere, Mr. Alvarez muttered. One of the moms, her face pale, whispered, Karen, maybe we should talk about this later, but it was too late. The moment had grown bigger than her control. Karen crossed her arms tighter. If you keep causing issues, I'm not afraid to call the police, she said, lifting her chin. I am well connected with the HOA and local board. I don't have a problem making a formal complaint if this continues. Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Police? He repeated softly. Yes, she said. There are rules in this neighborhood, and people like you. She stopped herself, realizing how that sounded with so many eyes on her. Daniel drew in a slow breath and let it out. Okay, he said quietly. If we're going to talk about rules and consequences, then we should probably be honest about everyone's behavior here. Karen frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He reached into his pocket. Her eyes flicked to his hand, and for a brief second, real fear flashed across her face. Some parents tensed, Someone pulled a child slightly behind them. Daniel calmly drew out a small, worn leather wallet and flipped it open. Inside, a badge caught the light. The metal badge glinted in the sunlight, simple but unmistakable. Below it, an ID card sat neatly in place with a photo of Daniel in a suit. His name in bold letters. Mr. Alvarez leaned in a little, squinting. His eyes widened. Dios mío, he whispered. Karen stared at the badge, confusion and alarm warring on her face. What is that supposed to be? She asked, her voice suddenly less sure. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. My name is Daniel Johnson, he said. I'm a civil rights attorney, unlicensed in this state, and I work with a legal foundation that deals with cases of racial harassment and abuse of authority. A hush dropped over the small crowd. One of the moms' mouths fell open. The teenage girl holding the phone whispered, "No way," under her breath, though the camera never left Daniel, and Karen blinked hard. You're a lawyer? She asked. Yes, Daniel answered simply. And a father. And a husband. He held her gaze. Which one do you want to deal with right now? Color rose in her cheeks. You're making this into something it's not, she said. I was just trying to keep the peace. By accusing a 5-year-old of causing trouble without asking what happened, Daniel said evenly. By yelling at his mother to go back to her country. By threatening to call the police because you didn't like the way we look in your park. That's not keeping the peace. That's targeting. I didn't threaten anyone, she insisted. You're twisting everything. I simply said, the teenage girl finally spoke up. I got it all on video, she said, lifting her phone slightly. Everything you said. Several heads turned toward her. Karen's eyes went wide. You were recording me? The girl shrugged, a little nervous, but standing her ground. You were yelling in the park, she said. Everybody heard you. Mr. Alvarez nodded. I'll be happy to give a statement too, he said. You've bullied people around here for years, Karen. We all know it. Some of the moms who had been quiet shifted their weight, avoiding Karen's eyes. One of them cleared her throat and admitted softly, You do go too far sometimes. Today was a lot. Karen looked around in disbelief, as if she'd suddenly woken up in a different neighborhood. Oh, so now I'm the bad guy? She demanded. After everything I've done to keep this place safe? I was just trying to protect our kids. Daniel tilted his head. From what? He asked. A little boy who offered a toy back. A mother sitting on a bench with a book? The color of our skin? She opened her mouth and closed it again, struggling for an answer that made sense. None came. I'll be requesting copies of the park security footage, Daniel continued. I'll also be asking the HOA for any previous complaints you've filed against other families, especially families of color, and for records of how they handled them. You can't do that, she said quickly. That's private. It's not, Daniel replied. Not if it's part of a pattern of discrimination in a public space. And you made this public the second you raised your voice and told my wife she didn't belong here. He took a small step closer, not in threat, but in quiet authority. Here's what you need to understand. Karen, he said, every time someone like you uses fear or status or empty threats to push families like mine out of places we have every right to be, it doesn't just hurt us. It teaches every kid watching that our presence is a problem. He glanced over at the playground, where a few children stood holding on to the slides and swings, watching with wide eyes. Then he gestured to Noah, who was pressed against Ava's leg, still clutching her fingers tightly. You humiliated my wife in front of our son, Daniel said quietly. You made him think he might have done something wrong just by being here. You tried to shrink him. And you expect us to just pack up and leave so you can feel more comfortable. Karen looked at Noah, then at Ava, then away. Her shoulders sagged just a little. I was angry, she muttered. I said things I shouldn't have. That doesn't make me a monster. No, Ava said softly, stepping forward to stand beside Daniel. It makes you responsible. Karen's eyes snapped back to her. Ava's voice wasn't loud, but it was steady now, the tremble gone. When we moved here, Ava said, I told myself I would let the little things go. The looks, the comments, the sentences that start with people like you and never end well. I swallowed it, again and again, because I didn't want trouble. Because I wanted my son to have a chance to feel normal. She took a breath and continued, but today you didn't talk under your breath. You insulted me in the middle of a playground, in front of my child, and told us to go back to our country. You turned my son into a problem in a place he has every right to enjoy. I'm done shrinking to make you comfortable. One of the moms covered her mouth, tears gathering in her eyes. The teenage girl lowered her camera slightly, blinking fast. Karen's voice cracked. I said I was upset, she repeated, weaker now. I didn't mean. You meant it enough to say it, Ava replied. The truth is, you thought you could say whatever you wanted, and everyone would let you. Maybe that used to be true, but not anymore. Daniel nodded. We're not here to scream at you, he said. We're here to make sure what happened today has consequences. Not just for you, but for this neighborhood. For how things are allowed to work. Karen's shoulders drooped completely. She looked smaller now, less like the queen of the park, and more like someone who didn't recognize the room anymore. I think I should go, she said, voice brittle. No one is stopping you, Daniel replied. She turned and walked away quickly, her pace somewhere between a fast walk and a retreat. As she passed, people who once made space for her didn't meet her eyes. The show was over, but something deeper had just started. Later that evening, the house felt quieter than usual. The hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of a clock in the hallway filled the silence between Ava and Daniel as they sat at the kitchen table. Noah slept in his room upstairs, his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm. He had fallen asleep faster than usual, worn out from the emotional storm, more than the sunshine. Ava cupped a mug of tea between her hands, though the drink had gone lukewarm. She stared down at the swirling surface, her mind replaying the day on a loop. I keep seeing his face, she said finally. When he asked if he did something wrong. He's 5, Daniel, 5, and he's already wondering if just existing in a park makes him a problem. Daniel rested his forearms on the table and leaned a little closer. You did everything right, he said gently. You protected him. You told him the truth. I felt like my chest was going to explode, she admitted. Every part of me wanted to scream back at her, but all I could think about was him standing there listening. So I swallowed it, again, and then you came. You didn't let it pass. He gave a small, tired smile. We're a team, he said. You held the line. I just backed you up. A notification pinged on her phone. She picked it up and saw an email from the Willow Creek HOA. Her heart skipped. What is it? Daniel asked. It's from the HOA, she said, opening it. She read silently for a moment, her eyes scanning quickly. Then they widened. They want to schedule a meeting, she said. They said they've already received multiple messages about what happened at the park. People sent them videos. Daniel sat back, letting out a slow breath. Good, he said. It's about time they started listening. They also said, she continued, they're going to review past complaints Karen filed against other families and look into patterns of targeting. They want our statement on what happened too. He nodded. That's a start. She set the phone down. Do you really think it will change anything? She asked quietly. Or will it just be a letter, a meeting, and then back to normal? Maybe not everything at once, Daniel said. But today shook something. People watched. People recorded. People reported it. That's different from everyone pretending they didn't see. He paused, then added, change is slow. But someone has to push the first domino. Today, that wasn't us alone. That was the whole park. A faint smile curved her lips. Even the teenager with the phone, she said. Especially her, he replied. Kids notice everything. She stared at him for a moment and nodded. I don't want to run from this place, she said. We've moved enough. I don't want Noah to grow up thinking the answer is always to leave. Then we don't leave, Daniel said simply. We stay. We stand. And we make them see we belong here just as much as anyone else. A soft sound came from the hallway, a small foot dragging across wood. Noah appeared at the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Hey, buddy, Daniel said. Why are you up? I had a bad dream, Noah mumbled, walking toward them. Ava opened her arms and pulled him into her lap. Come here, baby, she said. You're safe. He leaned into her, head resting against her shoulder. Daddy? He asked. Yeah? Champ? Are we staying? He asked. We don't have to move, right? The question pressed on Ava's heart like a weight. Daniel's answer came quick and firm. We're staying, he said. This is our home. Nobody gets to chase us out. Noah nodded sleepily. Okay, he whispered. I like the park. Ava kissed his forehead. Then we'll keep going, she said softly. She carried him back to bed, tucked him in, and stood watching him for a moment. His little chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. By the time she came back to the kitchen, her steps felt a little lighter, though her heart was still tired. Tomorrow's another day, Daniel said. Yeah, she replied. But at least tomorrow we're still here. Section 5. Over the next few days, the neighborhood rippled with quiet conversations. Some people pretended nothing had happened. Others tried to avoid eye contact with Ava and Daniel at the mailboxes or in the parking lot. But a few sought them out. In the park, a mom approached Ava one afternoon, her face flushed with embarrassment. Her little girl clung to her leg. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, the woman said. I was there that day. I heard what she said. I didn't speak up, and I should have. Ava studied her face, seeing genuine regret. Thank you for telling me, she replied. Next time, let's both say something. The woman nodded. Relief washing over her features. At the HOA meeting a week later, Daniel and Ava sat side by side in hard chairs, while a small board of neighbors, all in business casual, shuffled papers and cleared throats. A large TV screen showed paused clips from security, footage and phone videos. They watched as Karen's voice filled the room through tinny speakers. They heard her words. People like you. Go back to your country. They heard Ava's calm responses and Daniel's measured questions. No one could pretend they misheard. The HOA president finally sighed heavily. This is not acceptable behavior, he said, from anyone, especially from someone on the neighborhood committee. He went on to explain that Karen had been removed from her position, that previous complaints would be re-evaluated, that new guidelines on bias, harassment, and public spaces would be rolled out. It sounded dry and procedural, but Ava could hear something under it, a shift, however small. Walking out of the meeting, Mr. Alvarez caught up with them in the hallway. You did good, he told them, patting Daniel's shoulder and then Ava's, for all of us. We just told the truth, Ava said. He smiled. Sometimes that's the scariest thing for people to hear. Weeks later, Willow Creek Park felt different. It still had the same old swings and the same cracked bench where Mr. Alvarez now liked to sit with a crossword puzzle. The sprinkler still came on too early, catching kids off guard and making them squeal. The sky still turned soft gold in the evenings, but something in the air had shifted. Ava stood under the shade of a tall maple tree on a Saturday afternoon, watching Noah chase two other children across the grass. One boy had pale skin and bright freckles. The girl running beside them wore a pink hijab that flapped as she ran. The three of them shouted and laughed, arguing happily over who was it. "Slow down, champ. You're going to lift off." Daniel called from the bench, grinning. "You can't catch me." Noah yelled back, legs pumping harder. Iva laughed, a sound that felt freer than it had in a long time. She glanced around. Parents nodded at her now. Some waved. Mr. Alvarez lifted his hand in greeting from his usual spot. The teenage girl from that day now said hi when she passed, always with a small, knowing smile. The park wasn't perfect. The world certainly wasn't. But Ava could feel that the silence that once covered everything had cracked open just a bit. People knew now. People had seen. And some had chosen not to look away. Daniel walked up beside her and slipped an arm around her waist. "You look thoughtful," he said. "I'm just taking it in," she replied. "All of it? Good things or heavy things?" He asked. "Both," she admitted. "But for once, it doesn't feel like the heavy stuff is winning." He nodded. "That's worth something." She leaned against him, eyes still on Noah and his new friends. "I used to think the only way to feel safe was to be somewhere nobody questioned us," she said. "Now I'm starting to think maybe safety is also knowing we won't disappear when they do." "They tried," Daniel said. "They wanted us quiet. Or gone." "We stayed," Ava replied. They watched as Noah stopped, threw his head back, and laughed at something one of the other kids said. His laughter rang through the park, clear and bright. "He's okay," Ava said softly. "He remembers what happened. But he's still running, still laughing. That matters." "It does," Daniel agreed. "Because he's learning something too. He's learning that when hate shows up, it doesn't always get the last word." A sprinkler kicked on nearby, sending a spray of water into the air. The kids shrieked and ran straight through it, letting themselves get soaked. Noah waved at his parents with dripping hands. "Look, Mommy." "Rain," he shouted Dot. She waved back, smiling. "Enjoy it, baby." She watched him for another moment, then spoke quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "They tried to make us feel like we didn't belong," she said. "Tried to push us out of the place we call home. And," Daniel asked, "and they failed," she finished. "Because when Truth walked into that park with a badge, with a voice, with the courage to say no more, it wasn't her family that had to leave. Dot. It was the hate that had been hiding in plain sight. Dot. And for the first time in a long time, standing under that tree, listening to her son's laughter rise into the warm air, Ava let herself breathe all the way in. This time, when she exhaled, her chest didn't ache quite so much. They were still here, and they weren't going anywhere.